the residents are not very aware of the fact that they should try to keep the city clean by making sure that they do not litter everywhere. You find a place like Nyalenda, very often it is cleaned up, and the next thing you see is again a lot of litter thrown into the drainages, actually blocking the drainages. So when it rains, it's a big problem. We need to find a way to create awareness so that each resident feels responsible for keeping the city clean, and therefore throwing the litter where it should be rather than just disposing of it anywhere. That is one. The second one is the infrastructure. When I hear, I think one of you commented that we still have asbestos pipes. When is there a time we are focusing on to make sure that we remove all asbestos pipes? Because as we know, it is not good for health. And if they are old and they are still there, then it is the water we are consuming from those pipes is harmful to our health. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can the mic now move in front? There were two hands up in front here. Yes. Yes.
Thank you. My name is Josiah Osiri, WASH consultant and public health lecturer. I just want to make a comment that we have had good presentation, but it would add value if we could have some background information on social demographics, so that we have 5 types, is it 4? 3 categories of consumers, so that it will help us have a bigger picture of whom are we serving. And if we increase, what are you going to get? But based on what has been presented, that information is lacking. So projection is not easy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Noted. There was a hand behind there. Okay, give him then this. I'll give you a hand before we come to Mr. Dong.
Once more, I'm Vincent Mondi, representing the low-income areas. From the presentation from the company and the WASREV, I believe there was a key objective from those 2 presentations. And the key objective was, in future, they intend to serve or give access to low-income areas so that they can get more supply within these areas. And if we go through the set tariff structure or the proposed tariff structures, there is nowhere the poor or those who are coming from the low-income areas, their tariffs are not captured from the tariffs which have been just given to us. Let me just pass the question which I have so that I will not stand again. During the presentation from our Ebu MD, he gave us our previous performance of the company. I didn't know whether he was giving for the entire 3 in 1 tire or 1 tire. Thank you.
Thank you. We shall respond to that question at the appropriate time. Kindly dispense with Director. Okay, sorry. Just give him, then we come to Director Dong.
Thank you. Kwa majina mimi naitwa Onyango Kennedy. I'll be talking here as a water operator and also representing the group called Kiwasco as an official. Kiwasco in full means Kisumu Water Kiosk and Toilets Association. So my first question will be for as a water operator, then later my comment, and later I'll talk as an official of Kiwasco representing them. So my first question is just a cry, so that we can hear maybe tunaweza jua shida zenye ziko kwa watu wa water kiosk. When Kiwasco suggested that the tariff that was there before for a water kiosk was 1 shilling and it should now be at 2 shilling, kuna kitu they didn't consider. what they didn't consider first, they should know that wakati wanapima ile there are 20 jerrycan liter, they don't measure it at the brim. Ile 20 liter yao huwa inafika hapo katikati 17 liter. But customer akikuja kuchukua maji, hata taka umwekee ile 20 liter yenye Kiwasco wanapima nayo, wataitaka to the brim. So there is 2 liters yenye huwa inabaki hapo, which you have to fill for the customer to satisfy him so that anaweza kuja later. So every 1 unit, which is 50 jerrycans, we lose 100 liters. We somehow should know how we can compensate that one here. Then secondly, there is a first 10 units ya Kiwasco, they charge it at 35, they take 400 shillings. That means kuna 50 ingine wanaongeza hapo, then you will see how you can compensate it kama unauza. Then customer akikuja kutafuta maji, kuna some little particles zenye za chemicals zimekuwa treated, inabaki chini ya kibui. Customer akikuja anataka umpe kidogo aoshe nayo, uwezi mkataza juu unataka kusatisfy yeye, atataka kidogo. You will see how to compensate that one, you as a water vendor, water kiosk operator. Then zingine pia anataka jaze mpaka atingishe, aone zinamwagika. So hizi vitu tukihesabu hizi zote plus the standing charges, which you don't include in that 35 shillings yenye mna charge, you will feel you utapata hizi charges zinafika kitu 92 shillings, almost 100. This 100 sao ukiuza maji at only 2 shillings, ukihesabu utapata unauza 100 bob. That means you will just be sitting there for Kiwasco and giving them their money, and you sat there from morning to evening, you don't get anything, and everyone wants return. So that's why utapata sisi, sometimes, I don't want to lie, mostly mi nauzanga 3 bob, but 3 bob unapata 150. 100 bob inaendea Kiwasco, unabaki na 50. So tunapata hiyo little, but kuna some sympathizer, good Samaritan, they feel they don't need those shillings. Yeye anasema tu hiyo shilingi 2 nafanyia nini, chukua tu hiyo 5 yote. Alafu mi kuna style yenye natumia, ile 4 bob inakuja hivi, natumia strategy yangu kuuza. Nawaambia, if you buy 5 jerrycans at 20 shillings, I'll add you 1. That means it is 3 bob. So I'm only requesting you.
Asante Bwana Nyango. Na comment umemaliza ama kuna comment ambayo imebaki? Umemaliza?
Comment
Comment umemaliza?
Comment nimemaliza.
Asante sana Bwana Nyango. We have taken note of that. Can you bring the mic to Director Dongo? Then there's a hand behind there. You have not forgotten, you will give you that chance.
My name's Alfred Adongo. I come from Sana International, the CEO. I have some 2 or 3 comments. One goes to is a suggestion, really a comment, a suggestion to WASREB and the county. Now that I'm seeing the CEC is here, there's this whole issue about we need to review the proposal to give Kiwasco mandate beyond the city. Ideally, you know that Kiwasco, as it was originally established, was meant to serve the city. And Kisumu is the only county which has a very unique structure. Some of the cities are actually city counties. The boundaries converges with the boundaries of the city. But in Kisumu, we have 2 entities. We have the county and we have the city. And with time, the city being a corporate entity in itself, which is supposed to own Kiwasco, I can tell you in course of time, they will want to own Kiwasco the way it's supposed to be and let Kiwasco focus on Kisumu city. And Kiwasco needs to focus on being profitable and being able to compete with other similar utilities. This suggestion is not unique. If you go to Nakuru, they have an arrangement where we have 3 utilities in Nakuru. We have Nawasco, and we have Naruwasco, and we have Naivasha. Now, you'd find by a lot of standards, Nawasco is actually performing slightly better than Nakuru. I would not want to say it's maybe because of the level of stretch is being given to Nakuru, but I bet Kisumu can perform better if it was to confine to servicing the city. At the moment, we are being told that the coverage in low-income areas is better than the global coverage. I have my doubts. In my master's study, I looked at coverage in Kisumu City, and even without that, as SANA, we did studies which established the levels of coverage in the low-income areas and the high-income areas. It all comes down to what do you define as your low-income area. We should understand that the peri-urbans is part of the city. But probably in defining your low-income area, we are looking at the informal settlements and so on. But you must know that you have mandate over the rural wards, like Southwest, like Kisumu North, the Nyaheras and so on, where coverage is so low. And I think I'm recommending that you do another better study to establish the actual performance against coverage. And if Kisumu for sure has a low income coverage of 80%, I'll give you a pat in the back. The other suggestion I wanted to give, and that model I'm talking about of, let's leave out this issue of 3-to-1. Let Kisumu Water Company focus on the city. And the same model is being used in Nakuru. In Uganda, you have National Water Corporation of Uganda dealing with the cities and the urban areas. But we don't have a situation where we have a utility dealing with the entire county. But that's a suggestion. You can consider that. The other second suggestion I wanted to make is that I really wish our focus moving on would be on reducing non-revenue water. I've done a very simple calculation. At the moment, you are at 800 million shillings per annum. But that's because you are at almost 59% effectiveness in terms of non-revenue, because you're at 41% average over the 3 years. I've just calculated. If you had just moved at the target of 35%, I know Waster is telling you 31, but if you just to move to 35% non-revenue water, your revenue will move from 800,000 to 1.2 billion shillings, just by targeting the non-revenue water. And if that is done, then we would be soon not talking of reducing, of increasing tariff, because you will be able to meet other indicators, which then would not warrant increase. Then, the other one was the low coverage. I think those are the comments I have. I have questions later.
Thank you.
Look at it. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Director. Let's give the Chairman again last chance for comments. There was a hand behind there. Is it a question or a comment? Is it a comment or a question? Comment. I'll give you the last chance. Thank you.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah. Mine is the presenters have done a very good job, and congratulations. But there's a document that was being used by the head of finance that showed the structure, the revenue structure. And that was very important because we are not aware what the cost of production and maintenance of water is. He said it's 78. But how does that compare with other water utilities in similar places, not with Nyeri? Because if that production cost is looked at properly, that's when we can say it's high, it should be reduced or something. But if we just accept it at 78, it may not be right. Then, so there's need for benchmarking. In this public participation, we need to be told that such and such water utility is in a similar terrain and is drawing water from river and also from a water body which is pumping up, so that we compare those ones. Then, and we need the revenue structure. Then, if you looked at the kind of investment that is listed here, about quite a good portion of that money is supposed to be used in utilities that are not part of the Kiwasco's mandate. And that will reduce its profitability and increase its production requirement, its cost of production. Because we are including an area that is not in Kiwasco's mandate. If you look at the document here, I think Nyanas and Gulf are going to require about, is it 16 million? Yeah, water service improvement for Gulf is at 16 million, and for Nyanas is at 18 or 16 million as well. That's 32 million. And by that amount, the cost of production to cover this is then within the agencies that you have formed. For example, you take Kogelo Water Supply in Nyalenda. They don't charge administration costs. But you go to Kirembe, there's an administration cost on top. And that administration cost is not covered here. So is that legal or illegal? Then other agencies like Kenya Power stop charging standing charges and meter charges. Whereas Kiwasco is still charging this, and WASREB, we don't think this should continue because those are tools, measurement tools that you need to have there. You cannot supply without them. Yeah? So I think mine are those few remarks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair, for those good comments. We are giving the last comments behind, then we shall react and go to the last session. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Seth Okumu, the MCA representing East Seme, and today representing the chair of Water Committee. I just have 3 comments. One, I think from the presentation of the CEO, I noticed that there's diminishing water quality. I think from 98 and now we are standing at 96. And that calls for immediate intervention because you are encouraging us to take water direct from the pipe, the tap, and yet we are also recording decreasing quality of that water. And I think you mentioned about the rusting of the GI pipes that really needs to be improved. Then lastly, on the coast, I didn't understand if you look at the proposed change in water tariff structure for 2021-2022 under domestic category. I think that was item 2. There is those who consume between 7 to 20 meter cubed, I believe. Before they were being charged 67, and we are proposing to charge them 110. I think they are the group that is having the highest change, almost 43 shillings, if so. And I just didn't understand why that category had to have that much increase in their charges. I think those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, participants. After consultations, I've been requested to tell you that we note with a lot of appreciation the good comments. They've been noted. However, we don't want to respond to them immediately. We want to get the question, then the management and the board will give reactions and comments on the same. The CEO advised us, the CEO of ASREP, that there was a picture in his presentation that you speak in any language you can. I've not heard any other language apart from English. Now, can we now ask even questions by other languages? Thank you. How many questions do you want to ask? Can I see by show of hand the number of questions that we have? 1 at the back, 2, 3, 4, 5. Any other question? Gender-wise, we are not doing well. Gender-wise, there's no question from the other gender. The other gender has got, okay, thank you. Now we have got 5 questions. Can we start with the one behind again as we start and then we come in front? Be very specific in your questions. And let's ensure that we have participated well. Yes? Behind, there was a hand behind there. Or the question has diminished. That's gone. It's vanished, sorry. Or the question has been answered. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. I thought there was a hand behind me. My name is Ochieng from Kenya Association of Manufacturers. My question is on sewer coverage. As per the presentation, the current sewer coverage is 18%, and you're seeking to move it at 30%. And I know that there was improvement to get us to 18%. Could you inform us on the increment to 18% so that as we move to 30%, we project what might be the uptake? Because sewer improvement is a capital intensive, and you might want to know if residents are taking up connection to the improvement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eric, for that. There was a hand just in front of Eric.
Asante sana. My question goes to WASREB, that is this tariff that was brought to us here, was it meant only for the consumer and
Sorry?
water? Huh?
Mention your name again. I think record has not
I am
started.
Onyango Kennedy, a water vendor and also an official of Kiwasco.
Asante.
My question goes to WASREB, that is this tariff review supposed to be only on consumer and water operators, but what about, what is the tariff you are going to put on Kiwasco so that we know it, that from today, or what they said there was the only thing that WASREB constituted?
There was a hand in front, the third hand.
Yeah, Josiah Osiri is my name. I'm a public health lecturer and a WASH consultant. One was, I forgot one comment. This was on WASREP. I read your document and you have categorized non-revenue water where 20% is acceptable. It's good. 20 to 25 is acceptable. Why are we recommending for Kiwasco 26? Yeah, so you know our vision is to be the admired service provider. So are people going to admire as if we are still below the recommended units? Target. I have a question. We have a range here where we have 1 to 6. My question is, what happens to unit 0.1 to 0.9? In other countries, they have like 6.1 to 7.1, like that. So we are losing, or maybe you have a reason how you're going to charge this. My second question is on service delivery. If we compare it to nutrition, you'll say we are stunting. You look at the graph that was shared, the changes are insignificant, both in water coverage, sewage coverage. So what strategies are you putting in place? Because moving from 1% to another 1% is very insignificant. We need to do something. And then the third question is on pro-poor policy. From the presentation, we are relying on partners. What are we doing as Kiwasco? Because equity is very important in water supply. To us in public health, water is medicine, water is therapeutic, and water is also right. So we need to do something to the poor in Kisumu City. Thank you.
Thank you. There are some hands. Next to him, there's a hand. Then we come in front here, there were two hands.
Yes, I'm Otuoma Erick, also a kiosk operator. There's one thing that is disturbing me here. When it comes to pricing, we have mentioned here 20 liters jerry can, but outside there is 25 liter jerry can also being used to purchase water from us. If we sell 20 liters at 2 shillings, how are we going to sell the 25 liter jerry can? I've been in this business for the last 18 years. And maybe I may be the longest serving kiosk operator. One thing I would like to commend Kiwasco is that your employees have become very professional these days. And I like it. So please encourage them, because we feel part of the team. Right now, I feel part of Kiwasco because the first time I've even been invited to come be with people. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that good comment, and we are happy. The last question,
Mine is looking at your tariffs. I am missing where the DMM tariff falls, or would it be under the bulk, or is it under the kiosks? And I'm hearing it is bulk. If it is bulk, then bulk is the one which has been hit the hardest with a tariff increase of from 25 shillings to 75 shillings, which is a 200% increase. And the DMM people, these are people who are actually selling, they're agents of Kiwasco. They're supposed to also have some profits and so on. So I think this is an area which needs to be looked at. If you sell to them at 75 shillings and the kiosks, because some of them are supposed to be selling back to, within the DMM, they are kiosks. So if you are selling to the DMM at 75, how do you expect them to sell to the kiosk? At what rate? The other question I wanted to ask is, there is something in the current tariff called Conservancy Fee. I don't know how many of us have seen it. Now, if I recall well, initially the purpose of the Conservancy Fee was supposed to be a collection done by Kiwasco on behalf of the municipality. And it was supposed to be then collected by Kiwasco and given to the municipality for collection of garbage. And that is a service which is no longer being offered. And I would want to request WASREB, if there is a fee, money which is supposed to be credited back to the consumers, and I'm sorry for Kiwasco, and has been charged for several years, it turns out to billions, and I think we need to stop it straight away and then start engaging consumers on how to refund that money to them. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, participants, for those good comments and questions. Now we want to give, you have a burning one. How burning? Okay, give only 1 minute, please. 1 minute.
Once more, I'm Vincent Omondi. My concern goes to the WASREB on the issue of the flat rate. Initially, we had a range of 0 to 6, which was to charge 180 shillings on poor areas. But currently, the current proposed tariffs are getting rid of this. I do propose that instead of removing this category, why can't we lower it so that we have a tariff range of 0 to 3, so that 0 to 3 have a flat rate, so that, like if you go to some rural water supplies, those people at times get water maybe once in a week. Under such circumstance, that majority of consumption will be either 1 unit or 2 units. If you compute such a bill, at the end of the month, the bill for client will be 150. At the end of the day, will you be in a position to sustain such a project? And you have fixed costs which you're paying staff, you're paying other costs, and yet you have rendered that flat rate. Thank you.
Thank you. The CEO would like to respond to some of the issues raised and comments. He will be assisted by his team, and Waziri is also around. So kindly pay attention and listen to the responses as given. Thank you.
Thank you, MD. I'll handle those that I can. Those that I am not, I'll pass, and I'll give them to those that are related to Waziri and MD, the chair of the board, and Wasreb to answer. I'll do more of the operating one. So I'll start with number one, Honorable Steve Owiti, issue of the jurisdiction. I think WASREB has not reviewed this as it is. And what we are working on is, as much as Director Dongo says we need to have the three differently, is that there's a process that has been started by the county government to wind off the three water companies, the two water companies, that is Gulf and Nyanas, and merge them to Kiwasco to form one. When that process is concluded is when we will go to WASREB, we'll apply to WASREB for the review of the jurisdiction, so that the jurisdiction, as guided and as advised by the county government and the governor, is that we'll only have one water company. And that is what it is. In my presentation on the tariffs, I gave where we are coming from and where we are going on the current and the proposed one. And so we can look at it again. It's current and proposed. You can look at the document that you have, page 2. Of course, you mentioned about cautioning the company against inflation, the indexation. That will be there. It's a regulatory thing from 2018. But as he has said, will only go on O&M. There are other items that will not be covered in the indexation. But I think more of it, WASREB will be able to answer. Issues of environment, I think MD will take care of that. The infrastructure that we have, the asbestos, even currently as it is, we still have some lines with asbestos. And we need to replace them. We need to overhaul them. Overhauling these requires a lot of money. So when we're asking for this, we also need this money then to overhaul some of these lines that are old, the old infrastructure. The asbestos lines that are there, some of them coming from even here in the CBD. Yeah. So we need to replace them. We all agree for the protection of the environment, then we need to replace these lines. And this cannot be replaced. Currently, we've not got enough funding to do this, so we have to do it with our own monies as it is. So this is factored. Some of these projects are factored in this proposal. And of course, we are also relying on, there's a project that MD mentioned, the LV Watson, that will also help us replace some of the lines that we have, the old lines that have asbestos, and some of them are GI pipes. The socio-economic, that is brother Josiah. The socio-economic study, yes, this is there. It's only that we could not present all of it, but we have it if you need it for sharing, so you understand whatever we came up, because we also had to look at affordability and the willingness to pay. And this was all captured. What we saw that we needed to present here for the sake of this is mostly the figures for understanding. But all that WASREB can confirm that the entire report that we sent to WASREB initially on the application, you can't send it without the socio-economic study. It's part of the report that has to be there first before you talk about the figures. So we have the socio-economic study.
Vincent, Mondi, access to low-income areas, tariff is not captured. I need to mention here, and he mentioned it, the bulk sales. Bulk sales is for the low income, the like people like DMM. And as I mentioned earlier, the cost of production. We worked on this, and one surprise that came to WASREB and said why we even questioned us why we were doing that is how do you produce water at 70 something shillings and then you sell it at 25? Anybody doing as much as the tariff that we are doing, and I need to mention this, is a cost recovery tariff. We are not meant to make any profit. And WASREB can confirm that it's called a cost recovery. We are more on recovering the cost of operations and not to make profits. So if you're producing at 75 and then you're selling it at 25, it means it's more of a CSR. You're giving water for free and at a loss, which is not adequate. And so that is why the price has been fixed at the actual cost of sale, not at the actual tariff that is required of 79. It's left at the actual cost of sale of 75 shillings. Question on 3 to 1, MD will say more on 3 to 1. On water to the kiosk, that is Onyango Kennedy, and I think the other colleague also mentioned it. I want to say that probably kiosks, even at 1 shilling, are able to make profits. And it's a very simple sum that we are selling it, as I mentioned there, at 35 shillings per 1 cubic meter, so per 1,000 liters. 1,000 liters is equal to 50 20-liter jerrycan. 1,000 liters is equal to 50. So if you're selling it at 50 shillings, you have 50 jerrycans, and you're selling each jerrycan at 2 shillings, that is 100 shillings. We are only selling it to you at 35. It means you're making 65 shillings. So the price is actually, and as Kennedy, you rightly said, rarely would you find any of them selling it at even that 2 shillings or 1 shilling. Mostly you go to the ground, they sell it at 5 shillings. So the price is very adequate and is actually very low. This is for the low income areas. Kiosks are meant for low income areas and the poor areas. So the prices, as you can see, you're even making more than double the profit of what you are selling. So the price is actually okay. The other thing that I need to mention, I think it was mentioned here, the standing charge of 50, the meter rent. I need to mention this one has been abolished by WASREB. It is not there. So we will not be charging, as much as some prices have gone up, the 50 shillings that was also standard 50 shillings meter rent is no longer there. That has been abolished. So as we were working on the prices, you may think it's gone up and this 50 will also continue to be there. This one has now been removed. So we will not be seeing, after the implementation and gazetting of this tariff, we will not have the 50 shillings meter rent going forward. Director Dongo, most of your vacations were to WASREB. Issues of Kiwasco to focus on being profitable. I think I've mentioned that earlier about the 3 to 1. But you also mentioned about non-revenue water reduction and reducing it. And that's what we're saying. We need money internally then to overhaul some of these lines that we're saying. Because some of these lines are leaking and they contribute to high non-revenue water. Then what is required is investment for us then to replace those old lines. Our production cost, my chairman, Agina, the production cost is 79. This has been proved from the figures that we have, and I think this is done by WASREB, and they've looked at all the figures and they'll tell you this is what is there. And so the figure is not, we may not show you all the workings of each and every month, what is the salary, what is the, and all this, but the figure has been worked on, including the cost of the total number of water produced, that gives us that cost of 79. So it's scientifically done by WASRED, not even by Kiwasco. They've only used our figures to come to those realistic figures. So the cost, I need to mention this, the 32 million that was included for Gulf and Yanas, you say this one also includes the cost. It is realistic. It is realistic that for the past almost 6 years, 5 years, the company has been supporting Gulf and Yanas, and this is as was advised by the county and requested by the county government of Kisumu. And as you can see, the idea is then to merge these companies and form them into one so that Kiwasco takes charge all over. So Kiwasco has been involved in this, and even currently is supporting them by their staff that are supported there and assets that have been given there, and they are at a cost. So it will be wrong then, because this costs were even found by WASREP and ask, why are you doing this, and we were able to explain. So it will be wrong if we have a tariff that does not include this, and yet we are currently even spending on them. So this was advised by WASREP that we include those costs so that we don't hide the costs. So the costs have to be there. We've supported the two companies in production of in the water chemicals for use in production. So Kenya Power, you mentioned about the issue of the meter rent, and I think I've mentioned it also here, that meter rent is now abolished. We don't have meter rent going forward. Honorable Seth mentioned issues to do with diminishing water quality. We head of technical was around, but I can mention that our quality has been good and is good. And as shown up to quality of 96%, it is acceptable. You know that the water is bad. The water, even at that level, is acceptable for human consumption. But we are striving, and as you can see, the regulators also say that compliance should be at 100%. So we are striving. We are striving to go to 100%. That is why we are comfortable that even at 96%, we are comfortable taking this water, and it does not harm us. Then you mentioned about the domestic category 2 that was highly hit. Yeah, when doing the calculations, sometimes we work on where then do we get more as you subsidize the others. As I mentioned earlier, the category 1, instead of charging 79 shillings, we're charging them lower of 75. So it means it is already subsidized. For those, we assume 0 to 7 or 0 to 7, 0 to 14 are mostly the domestic customers, because that's somebody consuming a lot of water. 14,000 liters, 0 to 14. That is a lot. And so we assume most of the domestics will be at lower of 14. Of course, 17 to 20, then we can look at how much can we get from it, but the numbers are very few. Onyango, we didn't understand the question of from water kiosks, that the tariff is more on the water operators and others are not Kiwasco. The tariff is for Kiwasco. Kiwasco is the implementing agency that has to implement. So Kiwasco does not build Kiwasco itself. Kiwasco then builds the customers around, and who also include the water operators. So yeah, Josiah mentioned about the non-revenue water, that we are at 31. We are targeting to come to 31, from 31 to 26, and yet the acceptable tariff should be at, the acceptable level should be at 20. Yes, that is acceptable, but going to that level of requires huge investment, very, very huge investment, which we cannot afford at the moment. If you then allow us, then we increase the tariff higher to get that money and invest now, no, the residents will cry. The tariff may not be affordable at the moment. So we have to do it progressively. And that's why we are moving from 31 to 26. But as you saw in our target, even internally, we are working towards, because MD mentioned 20%. That is what we are working towards. As much as we know we may not be able to do it once, then it has to be progressive because of the huge investments that are required to do this. Then you mentioned about those who are 0 to 0.9, 1.1. I think what we use in the company is then we always round off to the nearest. If it is 0.9, then that is 1 unit. It is 1.4, it is still 1 unit. We don't round it off to 2 units, just for ease of calculation of our tariff, because the tariff is specific on actual. And as I mentioned earlier, we'll now be calculating each and every unit, and you'll be billed on each unit, not on. So we may not be able to estimate 0 point something, but we've rounded off the figures to the nearest tens. Proper policy, reliance on partners on issues. Of course, we continue to rely on partners. The company itself cannot be able to effectively do this. It requires huge resources. So we'll continue to rely on partners. And of course, we've had very good partners who've supported us before and given us a lot of money to do infrastructural developments. And we'll continue to pray that they will be there, including, these also include even water sector trust fund that is set up by the government to do this, that they look for money and support water companies in issues development. So we'll continue to not rely so much on them, but we'll continue to pursue our development partners who can support us to help us grow. I think I mentioned Otuma. Eric, thanks for your compliments. And we'll continue inviting you to more of our meetings because your contributions have been valuable. The pricing of 25, I think now this you'll have to use, I don't know whether you'll use estimate, because if you do 25 liters, then that should give us 2 shillings and 50 cents. But you see, cents that currently are not there. Probably you can agree with the customer, because that is then not regulated. But my WASREP should be able to answer that very well. For those who are like, if the coins are not there, then why don't you say it is, you just bring 10 shillings and you'll be getting 5 jerry cans and go once. So you monitor how the movements goes. MD, I think you can okay, there's something on bulk sales, and I think I've mentioned this. Director Adongo, for those who've hit highest, as you said, up to 200%, and I've mentioned for the DMMs and the others. Bulk sales, they're part of the bulk sales because we're selling in bulk, and that is why we're moving from 25. And that is what I mentioned earlier, that the cost of production, actual cost is at 75. Then you sell at 25. Then you're not in any business at all. So the cost that has been put there is just to recover. And I say, you've been there before, and you know that our tariffs are cost recovery, not profit making, for the recovery of the cost that is used in production. Conservancy, I think, is not a WASREB issue. I need to mention this, Director. Conservancy is never a WASREB issue because it's not set by WASREB. Conservancy is by the county government because it was there before. That, as you mentioned, for the issues of collection of garbages and all this, so it's collected on behalf of the county. It's not our money. It's not for WASREB to. WASREB does not, even the entire tariff, you'll not see anything on Conservancy. Thank you. So I'll call upon, probably other questions will be answered by WASREB. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Moseti. I think you've answered most of the question, if not all. And probably let me just move and see if there's anything I can add on. Yes, there was that issue of indexation, where you are saying that probably since this is consumer prices, meaning that even the water consumers are also affected by changes in prices. But now I just want to, indexation will only be considering the O&M costs. Other costs such as fixed costs, debt repayment, those are fixed, will not be considered for indexation. And it's just good to be true to the fact that the tariff you are making based on the prevailing prices, current prices. But you're sure the prices, the way of commodities or inputs, the way they are today will not be the same tomorrow. So this is just changes or adjustments just to take care of that. And it's only fair for the WSPs or the water to have that so that they're able to recover their costs. Remember, they're not there to make profit. They're not there to make profit at all. They're just there to recover the cost of production. Should they not have these changes in prices being cushioned, then they'll not have adequate funds to offer you these services. Yeah? So you have to look at it from that point of view. They need these changes so that they can able to buy the chemical, to pay for electricity, to pay for the stuff that are going to enable them deliver these services to you. So without that, then probably the services will be compromised. And again, you'll start complaining. The water is not clean nowadays, hours of supplies have reduced, and such kind of things. So we are simply trying to put in place measures that are going to safeguard. We're trying to be proactive so that when we get there, we already have mechanisms to deal with that. I think that is okay. What else? Those issue of environmental protection, I think that should be a multi-agency thing. It shouldn't be left to Kiwasco or the county government of Kisumu or Wasreb. And that's why I asked at some point why we're not seeing WARA or WRA represented here. The environment should be our responsibility for all of us. It shouldn't be left. It should be just a multi-agency thing. So probably again, the MD will have an input, but that is my approach. What else? You have been answered about the low-income area, the pro-poor. We are talking about most of these pro-poor areas or low-income areas. We'll have them having this kiosk. And you're being told that the cost of production for Kisumu, the cost of production, when we're calculating the cost of production, we simply take the volume produced divided by the cost so that you get the unit cost. So the unit cost, the cost the company to produce a unit of water for Kiwasco is 78 shillings. Yet, kiosk is selling it, you're selling it to the kiosk at 35. So you are highly subsidized, and that is a measure to take care of those low-income areas. If I'm going to produce at 80 or 78 and sell at 35, there's a loss I'm making. So those is just to cushion those low-income areas. So that is taken care of. There's also a question of the bulk waters, where you say that the increase is high and they've been highly hit. Again, I don't think that is true. The thing is that we are now come to reality that we are really undercharging this section or this particular type of customers, because we are producing at 78, still selling at 75. Lifeline is still at 75. So I'm not seeing any change there. They're actually being sold at the price that you will sell to a basic household. A lifeline, which is again subsidized. You're still even not paying up to the cost of production. Your price is still being subsidized. Because if you're producing at 78, selling to you at 75, there's a subsidy of 3 shillings there. So it's just that the company, or we have come to terms that this is part that probably initially was being under, and it's just good to bring it to par with the households. The issue of 7 to 20, again, that has been answered. There are very few consumers based on the data, very few consumers under that category. And it's just fair. If you look at the calculation that we consider, a basic household could probably have on average 6 members. So 6 members, if you do 6 members at consuming a unit per member, that will translate to 20 liters jerry can per member per month. Ordinarily, we don't have households consuming that level of water. So if you have an household doing that, probably then some other businesses other than just the normal life, like use water for basic needs. Now was covered. 25 have been answered. How to do with the 25-liter jerry can? Probably you can have an arrangement with your customers on how you can do the math. If it's costing you 10 cents per per liter. So you can do the math how much it will cost you to sell 25 liters. I think that's basically all. Garbage, again, you have been told that is about the county. We got nothing to do with that as WASREB. And the county is just a collection agency. This doesn't relate to water at all. They can even pick another agency to collect it. So if services are not being offered, please deal with the county. That's or look it at, take it from that approach. Maybe engage the county or MCAs are here to now challenge the county government to ensure that the money they're collecting should actually be for service delivery, because linking water tariff to garbage collection, they're not linked at all. That is, they're just being used as an agency, but that's got nothing to do with the water prices. Thank you.
Thank you. Waziri, you want to say one or two based on...
First of all, let me thank the participants for your good comments, questions, and observations. I want to sincerely thank the finance manager, Mr. Musetti, for actually picking most of these questions and giving the right information that needed to have been offered by some of us. However, I just allow me to just give some clarification on one or two. The first one being the integrity of the coverage in terms of percentages for the city. And that was asked by Director Adongo. I want to say that what figures we are representing and documenting, I've gone through credible assessment and data collection, and we are informed clearly studies for them to be documented so that we can be able to present them anywhere we have a conversation. And honestly, for Kisumu County, our production capacity is 81,000 cubic meters per day of water within the city. But what we actually offer for consumption, for use by the community members, is just 50% of that. So we have the capacity to even supply more. But because of the nature of infrastructure involved, we have shied away from actually being at 100% coverage. Otherwise, we would be at 100% coverage and have surplus for years to come. And we are actually water sufficient as a city beyond 2030. So that is why we are having a strategy, and that is the strategy which Mr. Dongo also asked for. And the strategy is very clear and simple. Resource mobilization. Looking at the national government, what can you do for us? And that is why I said here when I spoke early in the morning that the handshake came in handy to enable us move in the right direction which we are moving in. And that's why we are having LV Watson program. And we are talking about 107 kilometers of distribution coverage of Kisumu City. With that, we are also getting in touch with our partners, because our partners are there for us to help us bridge the gap and the challenges of trying to reach the underserved areas. We are also trying to upgrade the lines which are there based on the population growth, because there were some lines which were done so many years back with the population projection at that time. If we look at it today, we must be able to live with the fact of the population growth today. So we are trying to actually upgrade those lines to bigger lines. So that's why we need our partners. So our other source of budgeting is from the CRA. And
it is good my counterpart in charge of finance is here. So when we are talking about budgeting, which we pull together for the county, we are looking at how do we put up the infrastructure that will enable us to actually serve the people of Kisumu city and the county to get this precious commodity. If you look at the Constitution of Kenya 2010, it is very clear. It gives the mandate of someone occupying the office of the CEC of water, the mandate to make sure that each and every individual gets access to clean and safe water. And that mandate must come with certain responsibilities and certain strategies. So these are the strategies we are looking at, and that's why I sit in the board of Kiwasco to give the direction in which we are taking. And that is why I'm proud to be part and parcel of a team of the board of directors currently sitting in the board of Kiwasco, that we steer the company in the right direction by giving leadership and governance path, so that whatever the management is doing, we can be able to oversee at our level, so that we are guided by the fact that we must be able to give the service, but not being there to make profit. So Kiwasco as a company is not there to make profit, because water sector, you don't make profit. You give the service. But there's that sustainability component of it. So how do you tackle that component? That component comes with the type of engagement which we're having here today, that we are looking at the tariff which is there, but the sustainability component is a big challenge. So can we be able to have this conversation so that we can be able to look at the tariff which is there, which was done some years back, and can we be able to review it? So we must be able to listen to your concerns and your observations and your take on it, so that we can be able to harmonize our thoughts versus your comments, so that we can move forward. Finally, allow me to say that, yes, we are trying to look at the rural water utilities and try to find how best can we manage the rural water schemes. And the rural water schemes, we cannot leave them in the hands of those who have personal interests. Somebody collects money and put in the pocket without consideration that water is a basic commodity that needs to be supplied to the people who needs it. So how best do we do this? From where I sit, the 47 counties, we have had conversations. And we are in agreement that a solid company that is in charge must be put in place to oversee what the rural schemes do. And that is the type of direction as a county we have taken, to give Kiwasco the mandate to be in charge of the rural water utilities and for proper management, so that we can be able to have water for today and the generation to come. Allow me to conclude by saying that non-revenue water is part of the LV Watson program and activity. So when we look at the non-revenue water versus the percentages we are talking about here, I'm sure we are headed in the right direction, and that program will be able to bring it down to the recommended. I know the recommended is 20%, but we want to go below 20%. And so that we can have enough funds to be able to reach out to all of the areas, so that we are 100% coverage for Kisumu County. Water quality, we are looking at it. For my department, I know we have been having conversations with establishments around Kisumu. We consider them to be potential polluters. We are actually making sure that each and every establishment complies with the standards, so that we have quality water that we give to the people. Thank you so much, and may God bless you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Waziri, for those clarifications and response to the to some of the questions. I believe most of the questions have been responded to. and the window is still open. We still have another 30 days during which you can seek clarification before this is implemented. So this was just a sit-in for today, but there is window. Now this process we started it in 2019. So and we looked at all the concerns that could arise. That is why we've had a lot of back and forth with TREB, and they are here, and I think they have clarified that. In addition to that, we initially did a socio-economic survey, which was very thorough to the satisfaction of the regulator. We looked at the willingness to pay, and it came positive that consumers are willing to pay for water. What is key for them is consistency and service. So that came out well in the socio-economic survey. Within the survey, there was also an international benchmark against customer income levels and the maximum amount customers are willing to pay for water. And it came out that majority have the ability to pay as long as what they are paying subsidizes for the low income area. And you could see the subsidy element in the tariff as was presented by the head of finance. In the same survey, institutions did not worry much about what they are going to pay. Their concern was, again, service and consistency. So those were their major concerns. So this has been a very elaborate process. There was a question on sewer coverage and the uptake. I think in my presentation I mentioned about the low uptake and the reasons thereof, and the strategies that we have in place going forward to ensure that we increase the uptake, especially in areas where we already have lines. Now, the low coverage is not that we do not have sewer lines within some parts of the city. Their lines are there, but the connectivity is low because of the challenges that I highlighted, but we have strategies to overcome those challenges. Now, on service delivery, there was a question on coverage, our coverage that we reported in the low-income areas, and I think our figures don't lie. In our service area, the low-income areas are well defined, not by us, but by regulator, and they're well highlighted. So it's in those areas that we looked at, and we gave our coverage at being higher than our global average. So if you are doing personal studies, then it's good to go to the regulator so that you get the definition of the low-income areas in our service area. Pro-poor, we have a policy and strategy in place. So Kiwasco's role is well defined. So we not only rely on partners. Partners come because of what we've done. You cannot do zero and expect partners to come. Environment, I think that has been talked about. It's a multi-agency function, national government and county government. And I believe there are efforts, and we can already see quite a lot of activities that are coming up when it comes to environmental conservation. So stakeholders and shareholders, I think I want us to end there. So I want to give the moderator to conclude very fast. Then we will have lunch, and then we depart at our own pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you very much, CEO, for that. Now, participants, with those many remarks, responses, and comments, I'd like us to close this, and I'd like to get a proposer and a seconder that the tariffs as proposed, as presented today, be taken to WASREB for approval. Who proposes? Yes, I want a name, okay? First proposer, I give him a mic, let him tell us his name. Then we get a seconder, then we can close.
Owino Morris.
Yes, Morris Owino, representing or from which stakeholder group?
Director, Kisumu County Water.
Yes, Morris Owino has proposed. Who seconds the tariff proposal? Any hand? Who seconds? You have got a proposer. The participants. You need a seconder. Yes, you have a hand there. That's very good of you. Thank you. Your name?
My name is Lina Akin.
Thank you very much. And with that, stakeholders, we come to a close of our very fruitful engagement. I'll hand over to the CEO to give us directions on the way forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Wakili, the moderator of the day. We've come to the close. We'll close with a word of prayer. Now, I'd want to request that those who have been invited for the extraordinary general meeting to remain behind as others proceed to have lunch. I think lunch is served upstairs, if I'm not wrong, just up here. But those invited for the extraordinary general meeting kindly remain behind. And then Moseti also informs me that you do not leave before you see him. So let's close with a word of prayer from a volunteer.
We've been seated for long. Let's stand for the word of prayer. We are praying. Father, Lord Almighty, we call upon thy name, King of Glory, once again, grateful for your having guided us through this stakeholders meeting. From the time we started, we called upon thy name, and true to your love, you have been with us, O Heavenly Master. We pray and dedicate all the deliberations that we have had here, Lord, and to thee, that you may be able to bless them in your own ways, O Heavenly Master, so that they may be able to enrich us as citizens of Kisumu and also as leaders that you have appointed. Guide us and even bless us for the lunch that we are going to take, that it may provide us with the nourishment that we need to continue in today's work. We pray all this, trusting and believing in your mighty name. Amen.
Okay, asanteni sana.